with AI, you actually can scale linearly. Like it doesn't take a sick day. It doesn't take time off. It doesn't change careers. As we create these models, these applications, these technological advances that get better and improve, you have a leveling up asset here, like tool for leverage without the risk. We're talking robots.
Robots, trends, what's happening now, the upcoming impending apocalypse of technology. Yeah,
robot takeover. No, this is an interesting thing, especially in the marketing space, because marketers in general tend to be market leaders. Because of this relationship, marketing's effectiveness is directly related to its uniqueness. The more unique something is, the more effective it is when it comes to marketing, right? It's like the reason why new shiny objects tend to get a lot of attention, right? And so the idea of connecting people to a product or a service, that connection is more effective when there's something shiny in the middle there. And this has definitely been an uptrend, but I think it's kind of cool to look at it through the lens of degrees of leverage.
So I think this entire show is going to be about you are dropping an NFT, right?
That's it. Yep. We're doing NFT. You figured it out. We're talking crypto. No, it's my own currency. If anybody wants to buy Matt coins. No, I'm just kidding. Isn't it funny? These things, even like topical things like that. It's like a new stock that releases, this thing, like they've looked at like financial studies of this is it releases and usually there's a benefit to actually, if you can be like an early buyer there, because just the fact that it's new, it will surge like 2 or 3x. And then like a day, 2 days, like I think the studies are like a month later, it's almost always down from its launch point. Every stock ever, not every stock ever, but most stocks.
That's the common trend. Yeah. Predictable trend.
People who buy initially did have an opportunity where they could have sold for more, but then 30 days later, it's almost always down because of that's interesting in the market. It's that our attention is overvalues the new stuff. New is better. What was that? Oh my gosh, I forget the show that had that as like, that was their mantra, as like new is always better. It wasn't an entire show. I forget what it was. But so that it's just a human nature thing. New is always better. So we're talking about new is always better things, trending things. We're talking AI. That's really what I want to talk about is robots, AI, and this phenomenon in the marketing space as us as market leaders. But let's look at it through the lens of leverage. And if you haven't heard of this before, but there's kind of big buckets of innovation, of leverage that shift entire markets or just the entire economies and governments and people groups. And so early forms of leverage, classic leverage is labor. This is still used today, right? But rewind back and, to the pharaohs and just early commerce, it was labor. And you had slave labor, you had indentured servant, like all these degrees of labor is just human capital. We make stuff done. And if you wanted to do more than you could do for yourself, you get more people, and that's how you replicate your ability to output more. And that was how businesses grew, right? And that's, for a lot of us, still, that's our first instinct. If I want to do more, let me get more people. Interesting, right? So that first degree of leverage that comes on the labor side of it. That next one that evolved into it was capital, finances, the ability to not just have people, but like have this financial capital, so the human capital, this financial capital, where now your ability to have leverage on your business could just come from capital. This is like the advent of banks. There's entire industries that are just like we shift and moved money around. And from having that money, you can create other money. Like wealth is created from just leveraging wealth, which is huge and powerful. And you get big folks growing in empires on markets. Like we were just talking about stocks. So it's just moving capital around. The third tier there is technology and code.
This is newer. I mean, I guess in some ways you can be like, well, the first guy who invented a wheel, that was kind of a technological improvement. But we're at a major shifting point. It's almost like the Industrial Revolution.
Well, and people would actually say that this is still a lag. This is not even the most leverage there. I'd say like the highest tier of leverage to talk about is like media. And that is something that's probably newer, but like technology, you can still push it back into 20, 30 years, right? Where software gave us greater leverage there. And then you'd say like media is this most recent one where like that ability to like leverage. And this is why you're looking at like empires being built on the backs of media. People like Mr. Beats launching billion dollar companies. Why? Because he has such influence and such reach that when he launches a burger joint, it doesn't it doesn't matter how much capital, how many team members he has, what kind of technology he has there. He could have the most inefficient, understaffed, bootstrapped burger joint, and they would sell out every single day because of his media influence there. But AI is interesting in that it fits in. It is actually not a media tier. This is why, like, of potential points of leverage, you put in that technology space. But what is it looking at? Like, from an intelligence, does it have the ability to actually improve other forms of leverage? And that's the interesting part of it. Maybe all of them kind of like cascade backwards and improve the leverage that you have from the others. So you could say, like, if you've got incredible media, you can probably attract better talent. It's probably easier for you to get capital.
And same thing, capital can allow you to hire greater skill force or greater workforce, all those
Yeah,
things.
so they kind of like move back and create exponential leverage down the chain. But on the AI side with marketing, like, if you just think of it through that lens, how am I being better as I grow? Because what's unintuitive to folks is you're growing a business, which marketing does, right? If you get better at marketing, you will experience growth. And it's usually like this tension of sales and marketing and fulfillment. Like, gosh, we did a great marketing campaign where we ruined the fulfillment team. And it's like, oh, we got to fix the systems over here. But the unintuitive thing, if you haven't been there, is that growth is not linear. It's not linear. And it's not even, and I guess what I'd say is, especially even if you have exponential growth, you have disproportionately inefficient consequences of that exponential growth. So I've heard it said this way, especially when it comes to that lowest tier, labor. Here's an example of its inefficiency, is that the square root of your team size does half the work. So if you've got 10 folks, that means maybe there's 3 people that do half the work. And you're like, that's reasonable. You make it a little bit bigger and you're like, I got a team of 25. And you're like, there's probably 5 people doing half the work. Yeah, you got a team of 100. That's 10 people doing half the work. And it's sort of like, I don't know if it's a benchmark principle. Anecdotally, it starts to feel very real. And why that happens is because you need, as those things get bigger, you end up needing redundancy and stability. Like, if you look at a chair and you're like, what's the most important part of the chair? Like, the part that people sit on? Like, yeah. Okay. Well, so what if 2 of the legs take a day off? The whole chair crumbles. It doesn't matter how comfortable the seat was. And you're like, technically, who takes the brunt and kind of does the heavy lifting and, like, it's like doing all those things? You'd be like, well, it's the seat part of it, right? It's like the part that you put your butt in. Like, that is the most important part. That's the part that defines a great chair from a mediocre chair. No one says, check out my chair. It's phenomenal. I've got really buff legs on it. No one does that. You're like, I pad the seat, the cushion, the arm. Like, that's the part that interfaces, you might say, it's doing half the work. However, for it to stand, you end up needing more legs. You just, like, that one is supported by 4. And so as that kind of goes, it kind of continues in that same way. It's like your top performers, your folks that are doing half the workload, they want to be able to take days off. They want to, even if it takes 3 people around them, or it's like, come on to me, whatever.
Yeah,
even
whatever that math is.
Whatever that math is, even if it's 3 or 6 or 7 people around them to carry the same amount of work, just to do half of what they were doing, they appreciate that, right? And so it's just a reality to scale. Like, you can't, I don't say you can't. It is more and more challenging because of that reality. Now, flip the script or consider a different tier now. What does AI allow us to do? It allows us to get closer to your top tier, B+, like the examples that people have seen in certain sectors of application there, where they're like, hey, this is like a solid B, right? And usually it's like, I got an A supported by C's, maybe even D's, because you're like, man, I just need, you're just whatever. You're the night shift, or you are you're just like the 3rd round fill in here. And you end up making sense of it because you're like, my top folks, I hope that they'll inspire and train and educate and everyone will kind of rise up. But you need coverage, that stability. You need legs to hold the seat. And with AI, you actually can scale linearly in terms of that input, because you've got predictable inputs and predictable outputs. Like, it doesn't take a sick day. It doesn't take time off. It doesn't change careers. And so think about that too, as we create these models, these applications, these technological advances that get better and improve either by your own iterative building process. We're like, I used it this way. It got me like 80% of the way there, and I stacked it. I was like, I did this plus this. Oh, cool. That's even cooler. It's like you have a leveling up asset here, like tool for leverage without the risk, which is just fascinating to think about. The ability to train, improve, and maybe have a little bit more leverage there. So as we're thinking about the application here, we still think of it in terms of it should improve as like a technology would the overall output, but it actually should do it in a more profitable way. And so if I rewind back to like other big lifts here, I remember telling the team early on, is like, I anticipate some things, it's going to be kind of like the advent of like vehicles, let's say cars, on like the mail system, right? And so technology that improves mail. First, you're like, we went from horses to cars, right? Think about that. You're like, literally now you don't have to like have them in stables. You don't have to feed them. You don't have to like have them age out and have babies and all this. It's like cars, like predictable input, predictable output. I mean, you got a lifespan on them, but like you get faster, you get more mail delivered, and everyone like appreciated it, improved, right? Then you invented like technology came in there and you're like, email. Then it was like, I don't want to do more mail, right? It's like, that's going to happen. The shift now, as things improve, like manufacturing improves, so now it's like I could copy and paste whatever my widget is and have it manufactured in China and shipped all over the place. So now it's like, it's not just like email, the electronic mail. Now my goods are out there. And so, but it drives down the cost. You're like, shipped 2-day shipping from Amazon Prime. It's low friction expected. And what do? You still have entire billion-dollar industries that are the inefficient opposite. Here is my hand-whittled phone case. It costs 4 times as much as your Amazon Prime plastic case. And also, I charge you for shipping, right? So there's this like weird cycle of the efficient creates inspiration for the inefficient. So if I'm thinking like, what will this play out in terms of marketing and the trend here? And that I think is that correction. It's like the surge of adoption, and then it'll dip down and it'll find some normalized application in there. But because marketing, we always seek that innovation. I see inefficient things becoming like recircling up as the innovative way to connect people. And so like AI is fascinating because it'll be interesting to see how much it replicates the human task aspect of it. The one thing that it'll be super interesting to think is new generations in the process for individualization. Each generation is trying to carve out its space. And I cannot fully yet imagine how AI will be able to lead that innovation because it is a zig and a zag scenario. Literally, the next generation creates a different language as part of their individualization process. So you'd be like, if AI is trying to resemble humanity, will it invent its own trends? It's yet to be seen, but I would anticipate if it did, the next generation would still go the opposite way. The trends that AI will create, they will say, no, I will find my other way to do it, which could be being less human, right? And you think about this, is like, think about how the language evolves. The next generation is like phrases and words and things that have meaning are improper English, at least in English speaking countries. And like in America, you're like, they created a culture going the opposite way of what was standard and expected. You might say, look at this AI, it's brilliant. It never makes grammatical mistakes in its writing. You're like, well, whoops. What is the clue of you are part of humanity is you make mistakes. What is the clue is that you literally say, what is the ideal best experience here? And I'm going to go the opposite way because of this generational desire to individualize. And so for sure, for us as marketers right now, I think of it as that low tier of like, not low tier, but it's like a next tier of leverage. It will create efficiencies. However, I anticipate the response will be going back to something that is just different for the sake of being different, new for the sake of being new, and probably inefficient for the sake of being inefficient.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting watching those cycles happen, right? And the older you get, the more of them you see. And so like watching my kids be really into like going to thrift stores and things, which was opposite to the generation before them that wanted fast fashion, and it's seeing it happen at a macro level. But you think about it, teenagers have always been like the punks, right? Like the anti-establishment. And it's just part of that cycle. And I think you're right that I think that's what we're going to see with AI and technology, is that evolution as well.
No, for sure. So super interesting. And for all you guys trying to navigate the AI space out there and figuring out what this means for marketing or as marketers, I think at the very least, it is advantageous to roll with the trends, right? When you see, I would say some of the best marketing takes advantage of something that is timely, because like that's what turns heads. It's the same reason why you get traffic on this, traffic on the freeway, even if it was like they're pulled off to the side, or it's like a little, we see it in California, like a little fire will pop up. It has no effect on traffic, but everyone stops to look at it. And it's like, if that is already happening, if you already know people are stopping to look, it's kind of foolish not to take advantage of that. And so like, I'll give you guys just a practical tip here. There's trends. I think it's trends.google.com. Google actually keeps track of trends and will report on this. And these are the kind of things where if you can identify this, move on it early. I know we have. So like for us, this is the first time we're talking about it on the podcast show, but like, when have we been marketing towards AI? I mean, we had a product that was already in the AI space. So as soon as this took off, all we did was amplify the thing that we were already doing. So we were well positioned there, but we've seen this angle applied out in different ways. And actually, in a recent application for the SaaS side of it is looking at, how does this, like, taking advantage of any piece or part or language or conversation around the AI and that use case of AI in marketing. And even that gets people's attention.
Knowing that what you said earlier, that mistakes are how we like show that we're part of humanity. You do some really interesting things with like architecting. I think you call them manufacturing
mistakes.
Yeah. Talk on that really quick and then we'll wrap up.
Oh man. I think let's do a show on that.
Yeah, we could do. There's a teaser.
I'm going to tease it out. We will come back. We will do a show just on manufacturer mistakes, because I could go in a lot of depth here. We've been using that for years, because it is, especially when you're doing any automation or kind of like high technology there, it is the subtle clues that tell someone you're dealing with a human. And I think good marketing makes people feel like they're dealing with humans. And so let's definitely, I think we'll come back to that, and that'll be a good one. There's the teaser.
Yeah, there's your teaser. But keep telling us if you see some, interesting trends with AI. Obviously, send them to Matt so we can do cool things with it.
Love it.
Have a great day, everyone.